I'm yet to buy a single box of heavy hitters. You know what? That's alright. Hey everyone, I'm Klloo. So, new sets, new discussion. Basically, at the start of any release, I like to just spend a little bit of time thinking about the set, thinking about the current design and the state of Flesh and Blood, the directions going, where we've been, and just the slight and subtle differences that are shaping the direction of the game, as well as how it is delivered to us, the consumer. Now, again, personally, I'm yet to buy any heavy hitters. I don't know yet, even if I will. I did what I usually do. I sold off a bunch of cards. I have credit with my usual store all set up, and I just haven't felt the desire to buy any boxes of heavy hitters. And that, personally, is quite a different feeling to me, right? So, for reference, since Monarch, I have consistently bought over 10 cases. I mean, Monarch in itself, I have 12 cases sitting all sealed and just in storage. Same with most of the pre 2.0 sets, except for Alpha and Beta. I do have a decent chunk of the unlimited boxes of all three sets. And then 2.0 onwards, I made sure to hold on to a couple of cases of each set, with the exception of Bright Lights, and now, of course, Heavy Hitters. Even Bright Lights, my usual purchase habit of at least 10 cases was dropped down to 5. And then, even then, I only opened 3 of them. There's just less of a desire, or I should say incentive, personally, to open Flesh and Blood, and I'm feeling it more so than ever, with heavy hitters and the direction the game is going. Now, that is not a bad thing, right? Heavy hitters, Flesh and Blood in general, Analysis's direction is overall fantastic from a community perspective. There is such a great incentive on the singles market and staying connected with the LGSs and ensuring that they have an adequate role and they're not fighting with one another. And that is quite the contrast from a usual TCG. The usual habit of any TCG company is the second-hand market is your worst enemy. They eat into your sales. If you don't come up with a new product that has a direct need within the community, then you're in opposition. You're losing profits, because the older a set goes, usually, obviously, the more collectible it is, the more a premium gets attached to it given X amount of time, and the more people are just going to pick up the cards they really want, rather than opening and enjoying the entirety of a set. Now, since day one, Flesh and Blood has always had that philosophy. It's clearly stated in their rules and policy, and that is terrific, but it is still a different mentality to really wrap your head around, especially if you have been collecting other games and you've gone through the whole cycle. Now, everyone knows just by singles, that's how you're meant to do it if you're going to play any single TCG. Easier said than done. Now, sure, one or two of you, a handful of you, might have always done that, right? Had the rigidness to make sure to always stretch your dollar as far as possible. But for a lot of us, it's a growing idea, right? We start off, we buy boosters, realize boosters aren't the go. We want boxes. Boxes aren't the go. We want cases. Cases are not the go. So now we'll buy singles, right? It's a growing habit to form. And again, for Flesh and Blood, it's just an interesting thing, because the other way to look at it is no two sets of Fab are really similar. Even if you break it down to a core blueprint, there are subtle differences between each set that rearrange its desirability, from how the generics fit with the wider community to what actually is in the set, to as well as the rarity breakdown of the set itself. So what I'm getting at, for one, is take legendaries. These are the most desired cards because not only are they collectible, but they are also heavily playable. And the rate is usually dictated by the number of legendaries in set. So for instance, in Heavy Hitters, it is 1 in 96. Bright Lights, 1 in 70. In Dusk Till Dawn, 1 in 64. But overall, it's just an interesting dynamic, because they're constantly tweaking and adjusting and changing and trying to balance everything accordingly. And at some point, we've just gotten, to me personally, again, further and further away from the general model of a TCG, of trying to push the new set onto everyone. And again, this is all from my perspective, so some of you probably still buy boxes. A lot of you still buy boxes. But personally, what I have seen is a general shift from I'm going to enjoy the set. I'm going to, buy a case or two. I'm going to enjoy a few boxes and that's that. To, well, I usually only buy a handful, so I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to pick up singles. To, well, now I'm going to buy this amount of cases because this is my best chance at getting the desirable chase cards. And it's that big dynamic shift in spending habits that is really intriguing to me for one hand. So I'd love to know your perspective. Again, this video, while I do want to dive a bit deeper into the state of things for Flesh and Blood, right? I want to look at who the boxes are really for, which we're sort of talking about now, rarity and its breakdown, as well as what exactly is in Xbox, in this case heavy hitters, as well as the flow of sets and how, once again, they fit within the broader sense of the game and the community. But this is more of just an introduction, a rambling of my thoughts, if you will, and I'd love to hear yours in response. Have your habits changed? Are you buying less? Are you buying more? Because personally, again, I don't want to open, but I really want to play, right? I've never really had an interest in doing a draft or playing sealed. I've loved the concepts, but to me, I've always just liked to flesh out a deck, come up with a goofy design and go from there. But since Bright Lights, I knew this was the direction we're heading. I did a video on this is a great outlook, right? Having boxes shaped for playability rather than collectability, and then leaving all that up to LGSs and community members to distribute the desired singles to everyone else. And it just goes to show that LSS do a wonderful job in set. So Bright Lights, I had no interest in mech. I ended up playing, I ended up enjoying. Heavy hitters, I had no interest in doing a draft and playing sealed, but I really want to now. And if I'm going to spend money on boxes, then at least I get to double dip, if you will. I get the enjoyment of properly playing with it, as well as opening for the fun of opening, which, again, personally is a big shift, because as much as I love the game, as much as I love any TCG that I have played, I've always been far more inclined towards the opening and the collecting and the chase, right? It feeds the inner gambler in me, if you will, without going into, the more hard stuff. So that's always been the itch to scratch. I've always just bought boxes predominantly to open, to chase cards. And, if you pull that glorious cold foil, that legendary, you're excited, you're happy. But again, the overall market for that has dwindled. I mean, to put it in perspective as best I can, right? Your legendary, your big consistent chase card, which to me used to be cold foils. Cold foils have heavily diminished over the years, but that's fine. But yeah, so a legendary, 1 in 96 packs. So chances are, if you really want to consistently do the odds, then you got to buy a case. In Australia, cases is about $460. I think it's what, $350, $360. 85 is current rate in US, right? But then you have taxes and all that, and it does my head in. Either way, point is, you're spending a lot more than what the cards you're getting are, right? There is very little chance across the board, unless you're opening en masse, to recoup that value. Yes, you will see people with great boxes, lucky boxes, right? But then it's like anything other in the real life. You have to think about the people who don't. Right? For these odds to be realistic, well, someone's had to take a big loss. Someone's had to get a feel bad box. And again, to me personally, the spending habits I've seen shift is either I'm not going to touch a set to open and collect, I'm going to buy singles I want, I'm going to play with the set and enjoy it for what it is, versus, well, I'm going to buy, 10 cases, 20 cases, open en masse so that I hit those odds and I make sure that I get the cards I want. But I also have a good stockpile and level everything out so that I'm also recouping a large portion of my money. But all of this, all together, all it really, really drives home to me is how much different from everyone else, not only the game of Flesh and Blood is, but the company running it, how fantastic LSS are. Yes, they might make a misstep here or there. They might do something that we personally don't agree with, but it's still awesome for a lot of other people, and it's fantastic to see. But it is also a habit to break, right? From all different levels, there is something slightly different, slightly off to you initially getting into Flesh and Blood than any other TCG that you have to think about, you have to rationalize and realize that, well, I have to approach this differently because it is its own thing. One Piece is probably the thing to compare it to, right? So we don't like card variants, right? That's been made abundantly clear since MTG. But in One Piece, you have 3 versions-ish of a card from my perspective. And most games have, again, right, the playable, cheap version, the somewhat chase version, and then the really collectible version. But Flesh and Blood doesn't have that, right? Even the Legendary, again, the consistent odd is 1 in a case. So its price tag being anywhere from $20 to $80 is interesting because in essence, it should be a lot higher. Yet the monetary value is maintained because, again, it's the people opening on masses, the stores opening on masses that are able to go, well, people who want to play with a Legendary are more comfortable paying this amount. I've also opened these other cards, and these cards can be valued a lot higher than what you might expect given their pull rate because they are the collector piece. They're not the pieces where people need to have them to play, but people want them to show off and therefore are willing to spend that little bit extra. And it's that cohesion that is so interesting. Again, just I'm lost for words how LSS are pulling this off when you think and compare it to any other TCG. And it's just, yeah, it's a wonder to watch unfold how prices sit, how boxes are divvied up. But again, going back to those things that I really want to explore, right? Who are the boxes really for then? Are they for the general consumer? Are they for the people to play limited? Or are they for stores and people opening en masse to distribute singles? And is that the correct mentality? Because you got to remember on that other side of the coin, opening mass boxes is a lot of labor. You then have to catalog, sort, list, and then you have to handle sales. And while they do incentivize a lot of stores, if you're picking up the boxes to also, try and sell singles, because that is where you are also going to have a really good place in the community, right? Key to their philosophy. It's a if. Do they really want that? Or would they rather pick up a game where they can just sell boxes? Again, One Piece, since its inception, I've had to pre-order 3 months in advance, and then every month it goes up by $20, and then by time of release, it's gone up 40, 60, 80 bucks for a box, versus Flesh and Blood, which, again, consistently sits below the recommended retail price. So I just can't imagine what goes through the head of a new store. You talk to your distributor, the recommended retail price is this, but really you should sell for that. And you go, well, but all my margins that you're trying to get me to carry your game are based on this. So what am I meant to do? Well, crack it open yourself and sell the singles. That's where you will make a decent killing. And it's, again, a question of if I don't have that perspective, because that's not what I do. I don't sell singles in any capacity, and I don't have a game store. So if you do have something in that vein, right, some knowledge, again, love to hear it. But then also rarity, the other thing that I want to talk about. So we might as well go through the list, and I'll just give a brief summary, both for you and me, as a reminder of what exactly I want to talk about in the following videos. But yeah, so rarity, the breakdown of rarity. Okay, when looking at a lot of other TCGs, you got to think about, again, how many boxes do I need to open? How many playable cards am I going to get? Am I able to trade this for that? Is the drop off between X cards, X amount? There are a lot of variables that allow people to go from opening boxes, trading singles, to just buying singles. And again, Majestics are the high impact cards, while there are some commons and a lot more rares nowadays that are impactful. In heavy hitters, you've got brutes across the board, right? They're going to have an impact in even Levia because of the consistency of the discard a 6 or greater mechanic, right? So that has a lot more desirability than the cards that are more suited to just wager and clash and the inset effects of Olympia, Kasai, Betsy, and Victor. But then you also do have cards that across the board are going to work well with, like Dorinthia. And again, it's that set flow, which is another thing that I do want to dive a little bit deeper in its own video, that, again, is a big hurdle for LSS. And sometimes they hit the mark, sometimes they get close. I don't really think they've dropped the ball yet. And at the very least, inset flow is fantastic. And there's a little bit of crossover for the wider community. And then also what's in a box, which these are all very similar, mind you, as I was writing them down. But yeah, what's in a box? So again, this breakdown, this metric, this rarity compared to previous sets, how does it change? How does it affect who the boxes are designed for, as well as, again, the feeling of play and collectability? But anyway, we will leave it there. So this is just more of a intro in what I want to talk about, my initial thoughts and feelings. And again, personally, it is just a big shift from steadily enjoying the game, steadily spending a bunch of money. And personally, again, I know mentally wise, well, singles aren't a direct way of feeding LSS, right? So anyone selling singles, well, they're most likely getting distribution rates, right? So they are getting boxes cheaper than not. Again, I've never seen anywhere sell boxes for the recommended retail price. And that's crazy to think about, right? It's $160 in Australia, and I've seen boxes at $150. That's probably as close as it gets, but no one stick to $160, and $10 off of volume is quite substantial. But yeah, so the people selling singles, their distributor goes directly to LSS, so that's fine, but it does affect their earnings, right? It's a lot easier to buy a bunch of boxes, be able to, make X amount over the distributor cost and profit, right? Less work. Get the stock in, sell the stock out, done. Versus get the stock in, open it, right? It's that mentality that, again, makes it a bit shaky for me, because how much is it really helping LSS? How much is it actually sustainable in the long term for stores to be the ones to, again, break down so much volume of products, have so much bulk, have so much chaff to deal with and discard or use for alternative reasons or sources? It's mind-boggling, because, again, you open a box. In your first case, you're gonna get your commons, you're gonna get your rares. After that, there is just so much clutter, and I can't imagine what stores go through with that. And I don't see like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh where we get these random booster packs pop up, because I don't think there'd be a market for them. I don't think people would be interested in, a random Majestic that doesn't have the benefit of being a set Majestic, so it's going to be valid for X heroes, right? There's so many logistical thoughts towards how Flesh and Blood could be and is delivered to its consumers. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts, right? Again, the 4 topics I want to dive a little bit deeper into are: who are the boxes really for, the rarity of sets and its breakdown, what's in a box, as well as the set flow, and compare it to some previous sets, both in sets, so within the heroes available in the set, and then how it affects the wider community of Flesh and Blood. Because again, the more a set has value outside of its in-set mechanics, the better the set will perform. Simply said. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See ya.